DD has a question. Can you explain how Satan became the ruler of this world? Oh, that's a challenging question. I don't know that Scripture really explains it to us. When Scripture doesn't explain something in detail, it's like, how do we, how do we have strong answers on some of those issues? It does talk about the state of things, but you're asking how it became that way. So let me tell you a little bit about the state of things based on how I understand Scripture. That behind rulers are sometimes spiritual beings that are ultimately pulling the strings. So we read about this in Daniel. Daniel talks about this Prince of Persia character who seems to be seems clearly to be an angelic type being, right? There's like, he's waiting, he's praying and he's waiting, and Gabriel's delayed. And it's because this Prince of Persia character who seems to be another angel that he's dealing with. That's interesting. We also read about in Revelation where it says about, I think it's Pergamum, that he says, I know where you dwell, where Satan's throne is. So Satan seems to have like centralities of power here in this world. When in Isaiah 14, right, it talks about it talks about Satan there, and also Ezekiel 28, I think that's the passage I'm thinking of. It talks about Tyre, the king of Tyre, and then it talks about sort of the power behind him, at least my interpretation of that passage. And some would disagree. They think it's just talking about the king. I think it's talking about Satan, who's the power behind. Jesus also says he's the God of this world, the God of this world. And so we definitely see his control going on there. He's pulling puppet strings. Ultimately, God is sovereign above that, and he's going to even use Satan's plans to bring about his ultimate will. But definitely he's like pulling the puppet strings of the world. Overall, the world is being guided and directed by Satan. That's part of his rebellion. Now, it could simply be theory. When you're not yielding to God, you don't just have anarchy. You have what happens right after anarchy starts, right? So like if you have a government and we all declare anarchy and the government just disappears, all political power goes away, we don't actually have freedom. In 5 seconds, we just have a number of bullies. And whoever takes the power, whoever is the strongest, now is going to be the tyrant over everybody else. Right? So anarchy leads to tyranny. Boom, boom. Just right after look at what happens when the parent leaves the home and there's 6 kids, and if they leave no rules and instructions, the person in charge is whoever is the biggest and meanest. That's just what's going to happen. I think this is what happens with Satan. The fall of man, the rebellion against God, and so Satan is the power who comes and takes over. And so they experience that sort of being part of that kingdom. So that could be part of the explanation. We also see Satan in the garden. We see Satan like at the fall of man, right? We see that going on as well. And yeah. So I think it's the anarchy that leads to tyranny that has Satan pulling the puppet strings.